to Pursue the Pull, the podcast that is geared towards helping people who are looking for a career change, or for those who want to pursue their dreams and start their own business. Now, how do we differ from all of the other inspirational podcasts out there? Well, what we do is we interview people from a range of different industries. So if you want to set up your own marketing agency or restaurant or yoga studio, whatever it might be, we have someone specific from that industry to tell you how to get started, the highs and lows, and most importantly, the truth. Now, we are one group, one community, and we have all of the answers. And I am your host, Stacey Bevan, and today I have an amazing guest. So her name is Hannah Thomson, and she is the founder and CEO of a company called The Joy Club, which is a company that provides live and on-demand content, experiences, and a community for like-minded retirees. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us, Hannah. I really appreciate the insight you're about to give us all.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Okay, so before we deep dive into the questions, I just want to give the audience a little bit of your background and, what it is that you do. The Joy Club launched in December 2020 and is the go-to wellbeing platform for the modern retiree. You were actually inspired to create the company following the loss of your beloved Gran, who embraced retirement with a thirst for adventure and passion and for new experiences. And to honour her memory, you wanted to bring the same sense of joy, adventure and connection to as many retirees as possible, which is beautiful. Under your leadership, the Joy Club has brought joy to thousands of retirees across the UK, and the company takes an innovative, co-design approach to building an inclusive platform that resonates with modern retirees. Now, your work hasn't gone unnoticed, scoping the Health Tech Company of the Year Awards at the Global Business Tech Awards in 2023. Also, the Social Impact Heroes at the Hustle Awards in 2023. And you were also named one of Britain's 50 most impactful companies to work for in 2023 by Impact 50, alongside the likes of Patagonia and Headspace. I hope I said that right. Now, the future looks bright for the Joy Club, with ambitious plans to become the world's largest online community for retirees. And you have already raised over 3 million in investment and built an impressive team and board to deliver this vision. Now, the company is securing pioneering B2B and B2C partnerships, working with major retirement communities and embarking on proof of concept projects with the likes of Lloyd's Banking Group and Standard Life. So look, this is incredible, and I can't wait to hear how all of this got started. So I'm just going to jump into the first question. So tell us a little bit about your background. What did you do before you actually kind of went into business? Was you working? Like, what was the transition like? Give us a feel of what you were doing before.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've pretty much always known, since my early career, I've pretty much always known that I wanted to be a founder. I wanted to start my own business. But rather than just jumping into that in my early 20s, I thought it'd be better to get experience in other people's startups first. So I spent my 20s working in other people's early stage, high growth tech ventures. And the great thing about startups is that it's very meritocratic. So if you can do that job really well, it doesn't really matter how old you are. It's great. So you can, for example, I was a COO of a digital health tech startup in my early 20s. I was head of strategic partnerships in health in my sort of mid-20s, so managing director of my mid-20s. So I was able to hold these very senior, really key positions in some fantastic startups, including LV, the women's health company.
Yeah.
And I got into LV. I think I was person number 5 or 6 into that team pre-launch. And then stayed for about 4 years, heading up health and strategic partnerships, and left when there was around 200 of us, sort of post Series B. And it was actually the founder CEO of LV who encouraged me to become a founder. She very early on with my time at LV, she'd said, I can see in you, you are someone who's going to go on to become a founder, and just know that when the time comes, I'm going to be supportive. And I won't begrudge it. So it was actually her who said, I think you're ready. So she told me to sort of go away, do some research, come back with a pitch deck. So I came back to her with a pitch deck, and I pitched the Joy Club, and she came on as the first investor, and also joined the board at that time. So it was very much a kind of deliberate 10-year process for me of becoming a founder, working in other people's startups, building my network, and then ultimately having people to pitch to get the investment to go on and become a founder myself.
That sounds incredible. How did you know that the Joy Club, we touched on it a little before, but how did that idea come about, and how did you know that that was the right idea to pursue a business in?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'd wanted to become a founder for a long time. So I was always trying to think of that, the idea. What's the thing that's sufficiently big and interesting and impactful enough to take the leap and build a business around? And I think you have to have a combination of things with a business idea. It has to be something that you're really passionate about, but also there needs to be, a big enough market. It needs to be a commercially viable model. You need to be able to have the right kind of expertise to lead such a venture. And so I had lots of different ideas over the years, but it really was, for me, it was the relationship with my grandmother. She was really inspiring. She was my best friend, the person I was closest to in my family. She had a fantastically adventurous retirement. It was, the best time of her life. And then sadly, I lost her to dementia, and I wanted to pay tribute to her. And I became really aware of the challenges that people in later life were facing. And I just spotted this opportunity really to bring together my tech startup experience with her blueprint for joyful retirement, to share that with as many people as possible. And, when we look at society at large and, the ageism that people in later life face, and many of them, having to experience social isolation and loneliness, there are so many pressing issues that the Joy Club solves. So it was for me the sort of that light bulb moment of like, this is it. This is the one. It's got a massive market, commercial opportunity, impact opportunity. It's close to my heart. That'll be the thing that keeps me going during the hard times. So yeah, I landed on the Joy Club, and I'm very glad that I did.
Yes, and so did you just kind of dive straight into this, or did you have some sort of plan? Was there a lot of planning involved? I know you said you went and you got an investor. Was that kind of straight away, or did you need any kind of, money or anything to invest initially? Like, how did that transition happen?
Yeah, loads of planning involved. So in terms of the kind of how I got into a position in my personal life that I could actually, consider starting a business, because it's a big risk. I at LV, we'd raised the Series B, and there was a secondary sale. So that meant that employees who had vested options could sell those options. So I was able to sell some of my shares. And for the first time in my life, actually, I had money in the bank account that wasn't going to run out at the end of the month. I really had, until that time, lived month to month. And looking forward to that paycheck on the final day, kind of looking at the, cans of beans in the cupboard.
And then it goes as soon as you get it, like within a day, you kind of spend it.
Exactly.
Waiting for the end of the month.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd always just spent my salary on, the basics, but also experiences. And so for the first time in my life, after cashing in the shares in the secondary sale, I had a chunk of money. Okay. And so that opened up the possibility for me of going away and doing the planning and the research that would be needed to get to the point where I could pitch for investment. And then Tanya as well was very, very supportive. She felt I was ready, and that gave me the confidence boost to think, okay, right, this is the time. All of the stars were aligning, and obviously had the inspiration from my grandmother as well, and that had made me feel like this is it. This is the idea I want to move forward with. But I wanted to make sure that the idea was, bigger than my grandma. As amazing as she was, you don't want to build a business around one data point. You want to make sure you've done your market research. So I spent the first few months, reading books, volunteering with Age UK, interviewing over 100 people in later life to understand, the challenges they were facing, maybe the opportunities there would be to support that. And then once I'd done a few months of research, I then formulated the problem statement. And I came up actually with 3 business ideas that I thought would meet that. And then I had the group of 100 retirees who I'd been working with and interviewing. I had them vote for the thing that they thought was the best and best met their needs, which was what turned out to be the seedling of the Joy Club. And then I worked with them on everything from, the brand to the product design as well. So there were several months of research and planning before the point I had a pitch deck that I felt ready to go back to Tanya with and say, I'm really confident. I'd love your money and I promise I will do everything I can to make a success of it and to feel confident, and I think that's the thing, because so many of my investors are people that I've worked with before. Either they've been colleagues or they've been investors of businesses that I've worked in before. It's I take it very seriously that I'm taking their money and that I'm committing to building something amazing with that money.
How did you stay kind of motivated? Obviously, you had this investor that you've mentioned that was a key part of your, motivation. But was there anything else? Did you have a mentor or anything like that?
Yeah. So I've always been very intrinsically motivated. I've always had a deep sense of motivation in myself.
Yeah.
To the extent my mum, I can't even remember this happening, but my mum tells me that when I was 4, before my first day at school, she came into my bedroom and I was writing numbers out on Post-it notes and sticking them on the wall. And she was like, Hannah, what are you doing? She said, and I
Already started.
yeah. And I apparently said that I was revising. And she was like, how do you even know the word revising? You're not even at school yet. And so I've always had this deep drive. I went state school educated. I was a free school meal child for a while, not for all of my life, but for some of it. And I just always had a sense that I wanted to do something really big. And so when I was in secondary school, I decided, not only would I go to university, and that wasn't a given, but not only would I go to university, I wanted to go to, a top 10 university. And that's the only thing that would do. I've always been really motivated working for other people, working for myself. So I have a deep sense of internal motivation, but I also am surrounded by inspiring people. And I find that very motivating as well. So, my gran was a big motivation for this. I have an amazingly motivational board and advisors, Tanya of Elby, who I've mentioned already, but also Emma McFarren, who's the CEO of List, Sian Visinghe, who's the CMO of Wise, and Jane Redden as well, who's a partner at Albion. And they are an incredible board, incredible set of advisors. And I find that very motivational to be with some of the giants of the consumer tech operating investing world. So that's really motivational. And then also I like to motivate myself by spending time with other founders, because we're, it's lonely. So it's nice to be alone together. And I'm part of this amazing founders community that has honestly changed my life. And spending time with them is very energizing. And then I love as well to read some of the stories of the entrepreneurs who have now, built brands that have become household names, like Nike. The book Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, is just incredible. Just hearing, from the very beginning of that journey, how he built it from nothing, all of the challenges, the twists and turns, the near failures. But now look at the Nike brand and, all of the brands that we see, they started from somewhere. And it's, for me, that's really motivational to think, one day the Joy Club is going to be a brand that everybody has heard of. And that keeps me motivated as well.
Oh, I love that. So you seem like incredibly confident, but a lot of people that write in and out, they always ask this same question. They always want to know, how do you overcome that fear? Because transitioning to working and having your own business is different to being employed, because you feel like you've got a bit more security and so on. But, they said that they have a lot of fear, self-doubt, and they almost talk themselves out of actually starting a business. So did you experience any fear then, and do you experience it now? And, how do you overcome that?
Oh, yeah. The fear is real. I mean, it's a huge leap to decide to build something from nothing. It's a risk personally, and to your personal life and your financials. I'm earning less than half of what I earned 5 years ago, and in the early first few years of becoming a founder, you can't apply for a mortgage, for example, because they need either you to be employed or to have a certain number of years with in my 20s, I was out earning my friends, and I'd always be the one who's ordering the steak and the dessert and the expensive wine. And now they're all out earning me. And, it's so you take this huge personal risk where you think, I'm willing to make these sacrifices, time as well. I've missed my own birthday party because something came up at work. And so the birthday party happened. You make these huge sacrifices and you think, well, it's going to be, you have to have a belief that it will be worth it.
Yeah.
And you also, it's a big risk professionally as well. I'd climbed through these very senior ranks in my 20s. I was, speaking on panels at like Wired Health, and I was really getting somewhere. So it would have been much safer for me to just keep on that trajectory and keep up my roles and my reputation in other people's businesses. And of course, I think the biggest fear is that for me, my biggest fear is around it's public humiliation, because by creating a business, you're saying to the world, I believe I can do that. I believe I can do this. I can believe I can build a business from nothing. But it's so visible. And to make the business successful, you have to be everywhere, posting on LinkedIn and doing as many talks as you can and putting yourself out there in as many
literally.
And so the idea then of failing is very scary, because I say the world's watching, the whole world isn't watching, but there's definitely people that would notice. And it's much easier to be the kind of person who just thinks, actually, I'm going to stick to the safe route. I'm going to keep climbing ranks in other people's businesses. But for me, I think the world really is divided into two kinds of people. There are the kind of people that will take the leap, and there are the kind of people that will remain in that like safe, comfortable box. And actually, by being one in the category of people who take the leap, even if I fail, I've still differentiated myself from most of the population by giving it a try. And I think that counts for a lot. And what I've come to learn as well by spending more time with more experienced entrepreneurs, even if a business doesn't work out, is that failure? I think having a really successful business, it's kind of like winning the Grand National. You need the right horse, the right jockey, the right weather, the right, ground. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you as the jockey have it's great personal failure. I think, you need the right ingredients. And many entrepreneurs might fail in the first instance, but then have an enormously successful second business that goes on to become a unicorn. Or maybe the first one's successful, the second one isn't. I think spending time with really, experienced entrepreneurs has taken that fear away from me, I think, a lot. I still think about it, but actually I now feel I'm coming up to 4 years in. It's my foundiversary on the 9th of September. So we're very nearly there. I'm like 4 years in. It's like I kind of think of it as like I've nearly got a PhD in entrepreneurship. I've nearly got my PhD, and 4 years in, I don't feel afraid. I don't carry that like knot of fear in my chest. And I did at the beginning, I did feel fear a lot, but I don't feel it so much now, because I think, I'm here, I'm doing it. The determination and resilience is paying off. It is working. And I can't control everything. The things I do have in my control, I'm giving everything to. And I think that's all you can do. And by taking that leap, you are setting yourself apart anyway.
Yeah, most definitely. I couldn't agree more. And in terms of those 4 years that you mentioned, have you had any kind of big challenges that you've had to overcome that nearly kind of threw you off and you kind of, okay, I can't do this anymore? Have you experienced anything like that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so much. I spoke to an investor actually. It was in one of the very early rounds that I pitched for the Joy Club.
Yeah.
And he said to me, being a founder is basically, it's like getting punched in the face every day for at least 500 days. And as an investor, he's trying to find the people that look like they can be punched every day and get back up again. So absolutely, it is full of challenges. And particularly for founders who, and always there are things, but for me and founders also who founded their business at a similar time, I raised the first round of investment for the Joy Club in March 2020, a few days before the first national lockdown. Yeah. So there's that sort of, it meant we had to pivot the proposition of the business, actually. So had to pivot the business, had to raise subsequent rounds of investment on Zoom, hired the entire team on Zoom, built and launched the product on Zoom. So that was huge, sort of building against the backdrop of a pandemic. And then, of course, there are so many, and I think the word unprecedented is used too much, unprecedented amount of times, but there's a lot happening. There's a lot of challenges to overcome in a sort of macro environmental sense. And really, you just have to stay adaptable and resilient to that. Yeah. And then I think there are then the business, challenges within the business. It's always hard. Getting hiring right and hiring the right team. That's always really challenging. How do you find the right people? How do you bring them on? Competitors are tricky. We had in the early days, and I'll, be careful not to identify them, but we had a competitor who was logging into our platform, every few days and then copying any new design that we'd spent weeks and months interviewing our users and building this, careful new thing. And then that was just suddenly we'd see it on the competitor site. So
it's annoying, isn't it? But people say, no, you should be flattered. It's the biggest form of flattery. And you're like, yeah, I get that. But oh my gosh, it's annoying.
Yeah, it is, especially when, the team has been working so hard over such a long period of time to just really perfect a thing, so much that goes into that. But yeah, so I mean, huge amounts of challenge in the environment externally, like there are business challenges. And actually the founders community is so great because most of the time, like no matter what your business is, you could be building a fintech or a community or a fashion brand. Actually, 99% of your challenges as a founder will be the same. It will be around like hiring and investment and that's great to get together with other founders because you can share experiences and help kind of problem solve through those things together.
Yeah, definitely. And just to go back slightly, how did you actually get your first customers? Your first clients, how did you do that?
Yeah. And as I mentioned, we pivoted the business a couple of times, really. Like the product has changed enormously. The business model has changed enormously. So, what we would think of as a client has also changed enormously over the years. But where we are now is that the strategy is B2B2C. We work with large organizations, like you mentioned in the intro, big retirement villages. We're also doing proof of concept with the likes of Lloyd's and Standard Life. And the model there is that the organization pays for membership to the Joy Club on behalf of their customers, and then the customers access for free. Yeah. So that's the model. And for that, as well as for the various other iterations of partners and clients that we've had, really LinkedIn is the platform for us. Cold outreach on LinkedIn. It's absolutely possible to start these partnerships. You don't have to know people. You don't have to have that network. You can just, do your research, think really carefully about, what is the problem that client has and how can you solve that? And I think with, if you're formulating your messages in the right way, then you will get pickup and you can start those kind of partnerships from nothing at all. So LinkedIn, I think, is absolutely key for us.
Yeah, and it's incredible.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's just
it is.
Have direct contact with decision makers. It's
definitely. I think that's how I contacted you, actually.
Yeah, it is. And luckily enough, I'm always on LinkedIn. So I saw it and was like, oh, perfect. This sounds great.
So I know everyone.
Yeah, LinkedIn is amazing. As long as you do it well. I think crafting messages is key. Don't just like spammily send connection requests to everybody. And then the other thing for us that's really powerful in finding our partners is sort of events, conferences, networking. Mm-hmm. If you can start to build your network and build a reputation and build trust, keep showing up to things, be interested in the sectors that you're operating in, start meaningful conversations, show that you're there to contribute, not just sell. And I think that's key.
Yes, for sure. So I just want to ask, so this is a two-part question, actually. It's the last question, but it's in two parts. So What advice would you give to people who are thinking about starting their own company? And then also, what advice would you give to people who want to go into kind of the sector that you're in? What advice would you give them? So
Yeah.
first, starting their own company first, and then starting to do what it is that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you're thinking of starting your own company, my advice would be buckle up. It's going to be the best thing, but also the hardest thing that you've ever done, probably. And it certainly has been for me. It is the hardest thing, but it's absolutely the best thing. And I feel absolutely that I am where the universe wants me to be. This is exactly what I should be doing. This is absolutely the role for me. I cannot imagine another life. I think I'm going to be one of those people who found multiple businesses throughout my lifetime. The amazingness of starting something from nothing, bringing other people along with you on that mission, getting people to buy into your vision, and then seeing the impact that you have on your customers, I think is just, unparalleled, unrivaled. So it will be the best thing, but also it will be the hardest thing. You make massive personal sacrifices. And it's not like other people's jobs. You can't, or working for other people, you can't have a hard day and then just hand in your notice. Even if you would want to, there's particularly if you've taken money from someone, if you've taken investment, you've pitched vision to them and you've said you're going to deliver on it, and then they've given that money to you. So you need to do that. So I think, buckle up and think carefully about whether that's what you want. I think a lot of people look at founders and think, oh, wow, you've got so much power and freedom. And I think actually that's a bit of a paradox. I think in some ways I have a lot of power and freedom. I can make decisions in my business and, I'm the boss and we have a team and they ultimately answer to me. And yes, that's right. But also, as the further I get in my career, the more I realize everybody has a boss. So it's like I might be the top of the tree in the Joy Club team, but actually I have a board and I've got investors that I'm answerable to. Actually, those investors have LPs who they're answerable to. So the further you go up, the more you realize there's somebody else in the background that has more power and that you do ultimately have accountability to. So I think it's different actually if you do decide to start a business and you don't take any investment and
I was going to ask that actually, what is the difference and what would you advise? Because some people are kind of like, no, we don't want investors, but then some people go for it, and I do get asked a lot of questions about that. Should I get an investor? Is it the best way to go? Could you give us some advice on that as well? Because that is a key topic also.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it depends what kind of business you're building. If you've got a load of upfront costs that you need to cover, like at the Joy Club, we had to build it before we could launch it. So we needed to invest quite a lot of money before there was a possibility of revenue. So for us, it felt like, that upfront investment was going to help us to get to the start line. And also investment helps you to go bigger, faster. And I've raised, as you mentioned, around 3.2 million. I've done that from angel investors, also an impact fund, also a venture capital fund. And I've got a really positive relationship with my investors. They obviously have contributed their capital, but also they contribute their intellectual capital as well. So, sports, network, contributions. So I'm very lucky with my investor relationships, and if I had my time again, I would do the same, absolutely the same.
Wow.
But if you are somebody who has a business that it doesn't need a huge amount of upfront investment, you want to grow it at your own pace. Maybe you don't want to make the kind of sacrifices that I've mentioned. Maybe you want it to be more of a lifestyle business. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. I really respect people who build a business that meets their lifestyle needs and balance that they're looking for. So you don't have to take investment. You can also bootstrap. So, making money, getting the revenue to build and grow the business that way as well. And I think both equally admirable. And particularly as we find ourselves in this VC winter, I think for a few years, tech investment has been kind of glamorized and it has been easier. Now there's not so much investment available. bootstrapping, I think, is a very viable option. And I have huge amounts of respect for founders who do bootstrap, who grow through revenue, because that's ultimately product market fit, in play.
Yeah. Amazing. And so just going back, so to people that want to start their own business, in terms of, can you just touch on the fear elements again? And what would you say to just go for it? Would you just advise people, look, just go for it? And we have people as well that plan for a long time and they never think they're ready. And I know you mentioned earlier that you were planning for a long time, but would you say, because obviously your plans changed, you mentioned that everything changed as you started growing the business and you launched. So, I mean, do you think people should spend a long time planning, or do you think they should just go for it and overcome that fear and just take that step?
Yeah. I think go for it with evidence-based confidence.
Okay.
I think I wouldn't just blindly go for it, but if you've done your research, you've spoken to target customers, and you're confident what you've got is going to sell, or whatever the model is, then I think do go for it. But you can go for it. It doesn't have to be a big bang go for it of, one day I'm working for somebody else and then suddenly I'm going to switch over. You can do it. Loads of people have side hustle, so you can get the confidence that you need whilst you're doing what you're doing now. I think the key thing is talking to customers as soon as possible. If you're not already talking to the people that you're expecting to engage with your business, just get out there and talk to them, because that will give you the confidence. And then you could just with digital product in particular, you're trying to put out a kind of minimally viable product. So rather than spending months and years building what you think is the perfect thing, get something that's minimally viable and then just put it out there and see what people think, because the likelihood of you by yourself, in your bedroom, having got it perfect already is so low. You've got to just get it out, build something in some shape or form, work out a way of what is the smallest, quickest way that I can get confidence in this idea, put that out there, and then, iterate, innovate, and then you'll get to a point where you can think, yes, absolutely, I have got the confidence to go for it. But that confidence should be about what you're seeing with your business in the market, not an internal, imposter syndrome confidence issue. Because actually, if that's the issue that's holding you back, really, I would encourage you to examine that and address that, because, you don't want to be holding yourself back. If there are good economic reasons why you think the business isn't going to work, that's a good reason to be holding back from it. But if it's an internal confidence thing, I think really, try and work on that and overcome that. And you will need to overcome that to become a founder, because it's a life of putting yourself out there and persuading people that you can build your version of the future that doesn't currently exist.
Yeah. And so what advice would you give for people that wanted to do what you were doing, that wanted to work in the sector that you're working in? What advice would you give to those people that want to kind of follow your footsteps, if you like?
Yeah. And I suppose we work in a few different sectors, in the sense that what we're building would probably be described as age tech. It's digital product, it's community. We're an investor-backed tech startup, but when we look at our partnerships, we're operating in, retirement living, health, banking, pensions, and financial services. So we're sort of, a little bit all over the place in terms of the sectors we're in. And I'd have had different advice for all of those things. I think from a, digital product perspective, it's very, and an age tech perspective, it's very much around proximity to customers. Really know your customers, and that's true for investment as well. Investors will want to know that you really understand your customers, and that's going to be the most compelling thing. People buy stuff if they love it, and ultimately you're trying to build something, whatever it is, whether you're going to do comms consultancy or a shoe brand or a platform, knowing your customers is key. And then in terms of the sectors that we're operating in from partnerships perspective, health, retirement living, banking, pensions, financial services, others as well. Really, it's getting to know each sector and understanding the language, the vocabulary, the expectations, the way that they operate, and then chameleoning into that. You know, I'll have where I'm speaking to maybe 3 different sectors, and the language I use is completely different. Sometimes what I'm wearing is completely different. You know, the speak is completely different. So it's the way I describe the product is completely different as well. So it's really about, again, I guess it comes back to customer knowledge. Really understand who you're speaking to. Think about how what you're doing solves a problem.
Yeah.
And actually, that is translatable to anything.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I mean, we've come to the end now, but you have just given our audience, you've given us so much insight. That was incredible. So I just want to thank you so much for your time, because I know you're a busy lady. So I really appreciate you being here and just, you know, giving us all of this insight. It was absolutely incredible. So thank you for coming on to the podcast. Really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. It's been a great chat. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.